And Friday, October 4th, we are going to let third period do what third period does best, which is have discussions in a moment, or just lose B points, which could be also the thing they're really good at. We just handed back book reports, so they have all kinds of questions. They have to wait for me to talk first, which is not a thing that third period is good at, but we're going to get there in just a moment. Behind me, the tie game up there, information you can do with hat, coat, and glove drive, turn stuff in for next week. Last day to do 9-week assessment is Sunday night. I'll send reminds over the weekend. Once again, your only homework for me is doing ready for the test next week, and then you should be good to go. Book report, taking a look at it. As you go through there and take a look at a little Grady sheet that you have gotten back that looks something like that. On there, if you have pluses out to the right-hand side, that's called extra credit. What happens is, when I grade a book report, sometimes you go above and beyond what I expect and you make me smile. When that happens, you get extra points. The biggest areas to get extra points were probably going to be in report quality, blank space, and then the collage quality. On the blank space, for the most part, if you did like an excellent collage and covered everything, and it looks all beautiful and brought a little tear to my eye, probably gave you a few extra points. As far as the blank space went, as long as you had 30 pictures and good explanations, I tried not to charge you points unless it was way big and obvious that like half your poster was empty. Then I had to be a little bit grumpy with you. Otherwise, blank space, you were probably good. Report quality. If you lost points, it probably says R for repeating, as in you started every single sentence the same way. G for grammar, because once again, some of you don't know what periods or capital letters are. So when I graded it, it hurt my brain. You might have S/W, which means short/weak, where you just had Bob. Bob likes dogs. Dog. This is the dog that Bob likes. Collar. This is on the Bob's dog. And so stuff like that I had issues with. And then some of you guys went back and forth, and you'd have really crappy sentences and really beautiful sentences. So I'd be like, some awful, some excellent. It'd be like, it sort of like balanced out. You might have me saying like bad things over there, but you didn't lose points. That's because you had other ones that were really good. If your bad ones had been good, you would have gotten extra credit. But sometimes I'm guessing you guys were writing it, and it's like the night before, and you're like, I just give up. I can't do any more. Here's just a word, and you'd stop. And so that was sort of the grading as I went through on that one. I think that's if you see DIR and a number, that means direction. Probably DIR 3, DIR 10, DIR 13, DIR 20. These were all the directions that apparently kids did not realize existed and then did not follow, and then you lost points for not following directions from there. And then collage quality, sometimes even above and beyond, you might have made me smile, but being all Englishy, words impress me more than pictures do, but every once in a while you'd still touch my little arty heart, and I'd be able to give you points from there. Now, questions I did not cover that we still, my goodness gracious, fizzle.
Okay, I have 2 questions. Why did you write devil tail on mine?
Because your picture of the girl with the devil tail and the devil horns made me smile.
Oh, thank you. I worked very hard on that. I drew it myself, except for the picture.
I drew myself.
Wait a minute.
She did everything herself except for the picture. Go ahead.
Okay, and what is INFC? Exclamation point.
Where is it written?
Under report quality.
He doesn't even know.
Info.
Great info.
But
INFO.
That isn't an O.
Okay, then it says great emphasis.
I got
2 extra points for that.
For sassing your teacher. Good job. Soapy cone.
Can I send a picture of this to my mom? I told her that I thought I was going to fail because I was doing it really.
So proud. Sure. Alyssa.
Can I text my mom just because?
No.
So for blank space, I had blank space, but you marked the 10 and you added a +1.
Yeah, apparently your idea of blank space is different than mine.
But it was like this.
Yeah, I don't think you've seen other kids' projects.
Okay, and on report quality.
Sometimes as I'm grading yours, if I happen to grade like a whole string of in front of yours, and I get to yours, I'm like, oh my god, that's so much better than the last 5 I just looked at. So that might bump yours up.
Okay, and for report quality, you put R, great info, and +2, but I had I chose blank.
Correct, you did. So you could have probably had +4, But because you repeated, you only got +2.
But why did I get a +2?
Because you had really good stuff.
Oh.
You just started it really horribly. So this, again, it was a roller coaster. I'm like, oh my God, wait, that's really good writing. Oh my God, that's really good writing. And so I was like, as I went through it, but you had more good than bad.
Okay.
Bradley, not Bradley. Brady. Sorry.
Can I text my mom right now and have her yell at me right now? Say when I get home.
Just to start preset the yelling?
Yeah.
Sure. Who's going to say no to having mom pre-yell at you? You can also have her watch the video when she gets done too, and have her, the video of me saying that, yes, Mama Carmen, you can yell at him. It's okay.
She doesn't watch the video.
Well, tell her to watch the video now. Tell her she's in the video. She's YouTube famous. Man.
200 subscribers.
Right? Then you can put away that thing, and all you need out is the one about the guy who probably made some of you cry. Victor. But they can't find you. Like if they come outside the school and sit there, it does. Yes, they can creep on me.
What was so sad about it?
If they Google your name, you still don't show up. Not in your head. There's the website called yourname.com.
After he says okay, bye-bye, I'm leaving.
Before, once again, we get you guys standing up, we're going to take the 2 more volunteers to stand up and do speechy thing, so that now Brady's mom has to watch even more things to find out if we mention her again, because we just did. You showed up twice. And so now...
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Mom.
Hi.
If we have...
Don't beat me.
Oh, we would never beat a child.
Incorrect.
I would never beat a child. So once again, we will take volunteers. If not, then we get to randomly pick a kid to stand up and do talky things.
Hey, Brad,
We have...
have Larry.
Who went? Did we have someone go yesterday?
I went.
I already went.
Make Larry do it, Brad.
Volunteering.
Larry
Yes.
wants to go. What do you mean, who's Larry?
Reynolds, I accept your volunteering. And if no one else... And Logan, I accept your volunteering. All right. I thought we got to pick on a random kid. All right, Reynolds, up you go. I'll do hand signs with you, and then we get to talk. And...
So
Mama Carmen gets to listen to so much excitement in your voice.
Point of view. How we see the story.
Feels like I'm being sassed.
Theme. What we learned. Internal conflict, a major decision. External conflict, something versus...
Except for the sass, you did well. Did not expect your apology, but forgiven. Logan!
Jake. Characters. Who is in the story? Setting. When and where. Plot. What happens. Point of view. How we see the story. Theme. What we learn. Internal conflict. A major decision in the story. External conflict. Something versus something.
Nicely done. You're up to 32. Oh, Reynolds, you're up to 43. Numbers are hard. With the story, we are going to talk about the big arguey thing I wanted to talk about in the story to try and help you out. I do apologize for those of you who have emotions. There's every chance this, for those of you who read story, this may have interacted with your emotions a little bit.
What's an emotion?
You can Google it.
Okay.
All right. A few things to touch on to help you out. Let me go through and take a look at it. Some little referencey things on there.
You said that before in slot.
I did the date on there so I can tell when to go back and take a look at it.
I can go outside.
Let's see. 20th. Okay. If you didn't read it, then you're fine. Down, Tigers. It's not going to stop me from having conversation. It just means that we're going to spoil bits of it. Plus, the test next week is going to have questions, and I'm already assuming you've read it. If not, then so be it. May 20th was the scene where he goes out to the restaurant, and then he sees the kid drop the thing, and then they're all laughing at the kid. The biggest thing... Let's back up. When Charlie sees the kid drop the plate and he realizes the kid is really low IQ and everyone starts laughing at him, it's not so much that everyone laughs at the kid that bothers Charlie. What bothers him?
I used to be like that.
Well, a couple things. One, that he used to be like that, but there's something that bothers him even more. Z's?
That he's laughing at him,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what he would have done.
That Charlie realizes that he's also laughing at the kid. He's like, ha ha ha, look at that kid, look. Oh, and he has like that moment of realization that, oh snap, that's what everyone else was doing, and then now Charlie's like joined into it. And so we get that idea of him being aware, and the more intelligent and aware you are, the less happy you become.
Wow.
And so that's sort of like his experience as he goes through, as he gets smarter and smarter. And my daughter, who's a Globetrotter, who's also reading this exact same story in the Globetrotter team, she got to the part last night, the same one you guys did, where she's like, Dad, I can't read this. The words are so big. And I'm like, yeah. As you went through it, you might have gotten to where he gets like that super intelligent part, where all of a sudden he's like, every other word is super long. He's talking about like the Gestalt German theory thing, and you're like, skip word, skip word, skip word.
I didn't do
So,
that.
yeah. So, then we get to May 25th, and we find out something is happening to Algernon. Once again, who's Algernon?
He's a mouse.
What's happening to Algernon?
He's dying. His brain is rotting.
So we find out he did get super smart, and then the problem is now Algernon is starting to go back downhill and is now no longer smart, which does not bode well, for Charlie, because if Algernon shows you what happens, now we find out that single thing. And we get to June 5th, his hypothesis. This is where he writes the letter and submits the Algernon-Gordon effect, and so where he has an idea about what happens. What is his idea? What is his theory he comes up with?
I don't know.
Let's see if I can word it, because this is the part I had to explain to my daughter. Reynolds.
If you get super smart, then you'll get super dumb.
Not just that, but you were on the right track. Yes. It's in that one part where he says, essentially, artificially increased intelligence deteriorates at a rate of time directly proportional to the quantity of the increase.
Yeah, that just broke my head.
Yeah, once again, big wordy bits. The idea being, the smarter you make a person, the faster the drop. So if you just start off here, and you're like, I just go up a little smart, and you go down a little smart. But if you go up super smart, it's a big time drop. So you can make someone super smart, but the smarter you make them, the faster they drop off once they hit. Think about Story Mountain, and once you get to climax, if it's a really big rising action, it just goes climax and just straight down. But if it's just a really slow, gentle one, it's a really slow, gentle down. The problem is, what did they do with Charlie? Was his a fast or a slow?
Fast.
Yeah, his was a wah straight up, which means he's going to go wah straight back down. Then he realizes what's coming for him. The drawbacks, we kind of covered that a moment ago. Now that he's self-aware and realizing all these things around him, that's where he starts getting all upset. This is sort of the part for those of you who have emotions, might have started having those tap into those emotions, where Charlie keeps getting upset and he gets all choked up every time he sees all these bad things happening to him. And he realizes, the worst part of all, that he is losing his intelligence. He's losing his ability to understand things. And the fact that at the beginning of the story, it was one thing to want to be smart but not have experienced it. But at the end, he experienced it, but now it's disappearing. June 19th, he got confused coming home. And he says, I'm going to read the actual words to you. June 19th. Sometimes at night I go out for a walk. Last night I couldn't remember where I lived. A policeman took me home. I have the strange feeling this has all happened to me before, a long time ago. When did it happen to him before? Referring back to him being drunk with Joe and Frank, and the fact that he can't remember. So now the part is, he knows it happened, but he can't even remember what event it's going back to. So that's where it's starting to bother him again. His biggest fear? Not just dying.
Not knowing.
No.
Algernon dying.
Getting made fun of again and not knowing anything.
There you go. The fact of losing that intelligence, and the fact that people are going to be laughing at him, and he's no longer going to know that they're laughing at him. That self-awareness. So that he doesn't fear death. He fears being unaware of not knowing when people are now making fun of him, and the fact that he's going to go back to being that kid that's dropping dishes and laughing along with everybody. That's what freaks him out. And then we get to the title of the story, Flowers for Algernon. Because what does he do each week?
You give Algernon flowers.
And once again, because Algernon has died, he goes and puts the little flowers out there, and that sort of becomes his connection. And then we got to the thing at the very end of the story also. Victor?
I thought we were only supposed to finish the first story, like the first part.
Oh.
If only I'd said it out in a remind and mentioned it multiple times in class and stuff like that also. And then we got to his landlady, Mrs. Flynn, calls the doctor because he won't get out of bed because he keeps saying that he's sick. And then the doctor shows up and he says, I had a friend called Algernon. He tells the doctor he was a genius. He smiled when I told him I used to be a genius. He talked to me like I was a baby, and he winked at Mrs. Flynn. I got mad and chased him out because he was making fun of me the way they all used to. So the idea is he's still aware at this point that people are making fun of him, even though he doesn't fully realize why people are making fun of him. But the fact that the doctor's like, oh, you used to be a genius, and you were friends with a super mouse. I'm sure you were. Winky? We're going to give you special pills. Winky? And so he's like, roar! And so he gets all mad and ragey because he realizes that basically the doctor's making fun of him, and for some reason people don't like that.
Wow.
He returns to the place where he used to work with Mr. Donegan, and then we get to put that next one on there. Him pulling a Charlie Gordon at work was one part of it, and the guy that makes fun of him, the new guy there, and he says, I heard you used to be super smart. Why don't you say a super smart thing, super smart boy? And this is where, once again, those of you with emotions might have had them tapped into, because when the guy at work makes fun of him, what happens?
His friends fight back.
Which friends? The ones that you guys all hated on, they step up and they threaten the guy and said, you don't get to make fun of Charlie, he's our friend. And they both rally around him and say, anytime anyone gives you a hard time, Charlie, you come find us, we got your back, boo. And he was like, you guys are the bestest. And so we find out that even though they might have been kind of jerky at the beginning, at the end, at the end, they're trying. And so we find out that they've sort of learned as people, and they're no longer making fun of him. They now support him and stuff like that. Then, what was his biggest fear?
Being dumb again.
And?
Forgetting
Being dumb and not realizing it. And that's when he goes into Miss Kinnian's class and shows up again thinking that he's supposed to be in her room. And then all of a sudden he makes fun of himself. And he was like, oh my goodness, I pulled a Charlie Gordon. And then laughs at himself. And that's when we realize he has come full circle back to that point where now he is now to that point where he's getting made fun of and not even realizing he's making fun of himself. And that becomes that, once again, emotional part at the end where it becomes all sad. And then we get to the very, very end of the story where he decides to take off, leave. I don't think he dies. I think it's just the fact that he is trying to start over with no one who knows how he used to be. And that's when he goes through and says, where is it on there? Goodbye, Miss Kinnian and Dr. Strauss and everybody. P.S. Please tell Dr. Niemer not to be such a grouch when people laugh at him, and he'd have more friends. It's easy to make friends if you let people laugh at you. I'm going to have lots of friends where I go. And then P.P.S. Please, if you get a chance, put some flowers on Algernon's grave in the backyard. So the idea of him trying to say he's going to look on the bright side and he's going to try and find happiness. And the fact is, if you can just let people laugh at you and not judge them, then things will be better.
That is horrible.
Victor.
Okay, so you're telling me that instead of just reading this paper, we were supposed to read the last part of this and the whole story?
Isn't it like 2 months?
I didn't know.
4 pages.
Right. Brady.
Is there an end? Like, do we ever find out what happened to him?
This is the whole rest of the story. It's him sort of taking off. At that point, it's not, I'm assuming he just goes off and lives a normal-ish life like he did at the very beginning. It's just now that he has more that motivation thing that he kept talking about. Now he has more of that motivation to push him.
You mean motivation?
Yeah, he calls it motivation.
Oh.
Yeah.
So if
It's like
Algernon's dead, why would he die?
I think part of it is with Algernon dying, it wasn't so much Algernon died because of the surgery as much as Algernon gave up. Being a mouse, being a little mouse-brained, he couldn't fully understand what was happening to him. And I think with the mouse, he sort of gave up on everything. With Charlie, he doesn't give up because he has some grasp. The idea that humans can understand things more than the mouse can. And so it's not so much as going to kill him as much as can he still function through his depression. And at the end, I think Charlie can. I think he gets to a point where he's not so depressed he can't do anything. Yeah.
I still think he learned something from it because he still put PS and PPS.
I agree. Well, at the end he says, I'm going to bring a book with me, and I'm going to keep on reading, and I'm going to keep trying to find out those big words. And so, I mean, even at the end, his writing is still better than it was at the very beginning. I mean, so it's still him looking up words and him trying. But overall, the story is just a fun journey as you sort of watch everything happen to him.
Yes.
Fun.
I was so happy when Algernon.
The ideas of having emotions and things that stick with you make stuff fun. Speaking of fun, we're going to take a look at a bit of a discussion here in a moment. I'm going to pop some ideas in front of you. Here's where the issue is going to come in. Some of you like to speak as much as I do. So when that happens, those of you who raise your hand a lot might not get called on as much. Those of you who don't speak as often, you get to cut in front of people. So if you have like 4 people who constantly raise their hand, and then you raise your hand, I'm going to call on you so you get to cut in front of others. If no one is raising their hands, then I'll just go to the people who talk all the time. But those of you who are typically more quiet, when you're ready to speak, raise your hand, and then I will find you and bring you into conversation. Also, your goal here is not yelling at each other. You might have a disagreement, but that is fine.
No, it's
We're
not.
talking.
I did that one already. I'm not more about that one yet. Let's go to that one. If surgeries nowadays were described as we see in this story, as in the Algernon Gordon effect is a real thing. You get smarter, but the smarter you get, you also drop back down, and then maybe at the end result, you might be slightly dumber than when you started. The question is, would it be worth it? Would there be benefits to it one way or the other?
Wait, you said slightly dumber or slightly smarter?
You start off, let's say, I have an IQ of 120. And then you do this, and you're going to shoot up to an IQ of, say, 300. But at the end of it, you're going to drop down to an IQ of 100 for the rest of your life.
Okay.
So the idea that you're going to have a period of time where you get to be super smart, but at the end of it, you're going to be dumber than where you've been the whole time. Hopefully that makes sense. Victor.
Okay, in my opinion, the surgery, like, it would be, like, kind of worth it and not worth it. Like, worth it for, like, certain people in certain times, like, to, like, make things, like, scientists, like, maybe they could use it, like, to do something, like, they're trying to figure something out, because that would be, like, their IQ would go to, like, 1,000, because they're so smart, so, like, that would help them, like, find stuff out, and since it's like, a couple of months that you have it for, like, they could do a lot of work, they could, like, make the world better, but for normal people, like, I don't think it would be worth it, because that would just be, everybody in the world would do it, and then everyone would be less smart, and then everyone would be dumb and die.
Then you could also, if the Algernon Gordon effect is true, not go as smart, so it's a slower rise, and it could last longer with the same idea. And you're right, I mean, he does solve, like, the factory issues, and he does go past Dr. Strauss and Niemeyer and solve things that they could not figure out, the experiment. So while he was smart, he managed to do good things. It's just, we saw the whole journey as you go through it. Eeks?
I think that it wouldn't be worth it because, like, what's the point of being smart for a few months? Like, you could say, oh, well then you'll at least know some stuff and it will stay with you, but since it won't stay with you, there's no point in doing it at all.
Wouldn't it be for the joy of helping others?
Yes.
Maybe that's how we solve cancer. If you're willing to sacrifice and get super smart and then have a little bit of dumbness, maybe you're the person that can then solve that problem.
Well, yeah, so like, that makes sense, but like for a normal person, there's no point to it.
All right. Bronwyn?
If it were me, I wouldn't do it because when he got like super smart, he couldn't really talk to anyone because he was using his weird words and talking about things that no one understood. So no one would really talk to him.
that was one of the drawbacks he had, was he could no longer communicate with Miss Kinnian, and even like went sort of beyond where the doctors were, and he was like, how have you not read this research? And they're like, what the words are you using? And so that was definitely a drawbacky thing from there. Rowboat?
I don't think it's worth it because, like, once you go back, you know, like, what you could be at, and then you'll just kind of be like, think that there's no work, or there's no point in, like, doing anything anymore, because you think of yourself as useless, because that's what Charlie was thinking.
He did have that issue too. Then let's solve it this way. Let's say there's no regression at the end. So once we do it, because I got to figure with any scientific progress, you have to have test subjects until eventually you get figured out how to stop it. So what if we get to the point where you can go up and not drop back down? Does that change things and make things okay also? Brady?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So if you were to get the surgery and then get the surgery again, so you...
Can you keep going up and up and up?
And
I don't
then
know.
if, when you go down, you just go back to the, you don't drop IQ, you stay where you were from the first surgery.
I'm assuming doing it multiple times would not change. I'm assuming it's just like, whatever it is, it's like, putting like a supercharger into a car. You can't put a supercharger into your supercharger. It doesn't do anything. So once the supercharger's there, you're good. I'm going to assume that's how it works, at least. Excuse me. Miles.
I feel like the idea of being able to like boost your IQ and not having to go down would be a good idea only for some people. Because say like, I don't know, maybe it's like carnal sweep or something to make yourself smarter. So I feel like it should be like it's like a privilege kind of, like you should have to have like authorization or something from like.
Well, I'm assuming it's going to be like any surgery, so you're not going to just have like random junior high kids doing it because they're trying to study for a test. It'd be like once you become in the real world, some people get like a surgery to fix like a deformity or something like that. You can instead get a surgery to then make yourself smarter, and you could submit yourself to that kind of surgery if you wanted to.
Yeah, but like, I feel like it would only be like for people that would be able to make advancements without making their IQ smarter. So like people, that are like trying to run for like president or something.
So who gets to make that decision?
Like, just like I don't know.
Because then that becomes the question. If you're saying only certain people should qualify, then who gets to make the decision of who gets to qualify? Katie?
I think that it shouldn't be because then everyone would do it and everyone would be the same because everyone would be smart. I don't think we should do it to people, but like maybe for animals like service dogs or something, we could learn how to better.
So you're saying having smart people in the world is bad?
No,
Yeah.
I'm saying not everyone should have it because then there wouldn't be as much variety or whatever.
But we
Everyone
have
would be smart.
a lot of smart people in this room, and we have a lot of variety in this room. So my goal is just to give you the counter argument to make sure we fully think things through. That just because you're smart and Bobby's smart doesn't mean that you're the same thing. There's other things that go into personality than just smartness. Just making sure we're on the same page there. Google?
I think, so I feel like it should only be for like certain people, like
So you're on Miles's where we get to just sort of pick who gets it?
Well, kind of, but it's like, there was this one thing I've read before, and it was like, they tried to make the world equal by basically making everyone worse instead of better, and I feel like it would be like, it should be the other way if they wanted people to be equal, so it's like, only the not so smart people get to do it. And
So the thing I have there for the next one. Should this be used just for dumb people or for everyone? And if used for everyone, how does this affect being normal? So you're saying we should only allow it for people who... You want to go get water?
Yeah.
Go for it. We should only use it for people who are not intelligent? Like if you have an IQ under, say, 80, then you qualify for it?
Yeah, but like not like tripling their IQ like in the story, but like up to like an average IQ.
Alright. So your idea is that we should just get rid of dummies?
Yeah.
Wow. Alright. Dowell?
I think because it's like, well, only a certain amount of people should have it, like that's an idea, but like then who gets it? Like that's one thing. But how I see it is, if everyone was a superhero,
then no one's really a superhero anymore because everybody's a superhero now. So nobody's really super.
Then we're all just people with abilities?
Yeah. So I think where it's like we could have smart people and make them like crazy smart, then it's like, well, we still have dumb people, and then it's like, well, we take the dumb people and make them super smart too. Then we got
Doing a southern accent.
I know. Then we got people that are like middle smart. Then they're still middle smart. You know?
Interesting way of looking at it. All right.
You know?
Alyssa?
So I think that if we do, like agreeing with him, and, like,
Right.
then, and like making like the dumb people smart, then everyone will be smart, and then like sooner or later there will be more dumb people in the world, and they'll be like little children, and then like you won't want to do that procedure yet to see if they can like grow by themselves, and then but like the technology will become so advanced in the future that then we'll be creating robots, and then robots will take us over.
Seems a bit much, but I like your kid things. It goes to my next one. This is what we're closer to getting to. The idea that being able to figure this out before a child is born, and then only being able to do it to a child when it is still in the womb, and how will that impact things? And here's the drawback. For some of you who've already spoken, I have to go to the kids who haven't spoken first before we come back to you so I can share the love as much as possible. Vote.
Well, I mean, that was my next thing I was going to ask. I think it should be, maybe, like, it would start with, like, the next generation people, like, while they're still in the womb, you could, like, raise their IQ. Because I think it'd be a lot less dangerous, because surgeries are already pretty dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So, if, like, the first people, like, got the surgery, then it would just go forever.
So it would start a
Then it
new
was, like, big brain.
race of super smart humans.
Yeah.
That would make us dumb.
Soapyco?
Big brain.
By comparison, yes.
Okay, so if we did the surgery when, like, the mom was still pregnant, would it affect the mom? And how would you know what the kid would like?
That's where it comes in, where your parents would get to have the choice. They could go in there and by able to check genetics, they could say, we can test your child now and say that your kid's going to have an IQ in the 80 to 90 range. Somewhere that's going to be sub-normal. But we can do this surgery now and bump them up into like the 130, 150 range. But you have to make this decision before they're born, while the zygote is still doing that forming thing that we learn in science class. That's when they can do it, so the parent has to make the decision at that time.
But what if they make a mistake and then it messes everything up and then the child's like,
No,
then don't make a mistake when you're doing it.
There's always that possibility with anything we do. You have that possibility walking down the street that someone's going to hit you, but does that mean you never walk down the street?
no.
Yes.
So you have to realize that
Yes.
if you have to worry about fear, it's going to be there. Fizzle?
Let me just get this out. I'm a genius.
Good.
Okay, sure.
That doesn't have much to do with what I'm going to say. I just needed to get that out.
I appreciate you putting it on the table. Go ahead.
So, if, like, my sister was born 1 year before they invented that, and then I was born the year after, and so they could, like, adjust me, so then they could adjust me so I'm, like, perfect, and then they'll give me, like, a crown and bow down to me, and then...
So, quick time out. So you're equating being smart with perfection.
No,
I just want to make sure that we're on the same page for this one, because I've seen a lot of smart kids. I would not necessarily just equals perfection. But I see what you're saying. That it can then make a split in the family from one to the next. So what you're saying is if you've already had a kid, you should not be able to get it for the next kid.
Yeah.
Sort of.
That eventually
Interesting. Rosie.
Oh, I feel like it wouldn't be good because people would take advantage of it.
How so?
Like, you know, in Shark Boy and Lava Girl, that
Yes.
the big head, how he's like really smart but he's evil. Like, I feel like that.
And I think that pops up a lot in movies and culture, that you have geniuses always tend to be evil geniuses. And I think, but the same thing, once again, we have a lot of smart kids in this room, and I don't think all of you guys are going to grow up to have like your own layer. So I think sometimes we can have smart people who aren't evil.
Wait, are you gonna stop it now? See, we love talking.
Kloobs, did you finally give up on me? I'm sorry, Kloobs. I was ready to come back to you.
So I don't think parents should do that.
Okay.
Because that's just how their kids are already, and I just don't think they should change that.
And that becomes quite the argument to go into it, the idea of we should not change people. But then the argument comes, do you have braces? Should we not give a kid braces? Because isn't that changing a kid?
It's expensive.
Should you not cut a kid's hair?
Probably expensive.
Because on some level, isn't that changing a kid? Should you not be allowed to wear glasses? Because on some level, that's changing a kid. So then it becomes, if you open it up to changing a kid, why not allow this? Yeah, this is where you get into those tough arguments where you have to think things through. Isaac!
I was thinking the problem would be is that like everyone's like, oh, my child will be the next Elon Musk. The problem is like they might develop ADHD or something, and then it's kind of like useless.
And so, what?
Oh my god!
I mean, I get distracted pretty easily.
I'm sure you use Elon Musk as the example.
So maybe that could be a thing they look for also. The things like ADHD that may hinder their ability to do stuff too. Victor?
Can I go back to the old one? Okay, I say not at all because like.
Hey, which one?
What if the surgery could be only that wound thing? Okay, I say no because like you're changing your child and you said like braces, glasses, stuff like that. Yeah, but that's like after they're born, they make the decision. If they don't want to, they don't.
No,
like,
that's not true.
They can't pick it. Okay, what if your child just wanted to be normal, but you just made them like a superhuman? That's like we shouldn't pick out our children's lives. We should let them have it.
So the idea, so you're saying every kid has the choice on whether they're going to have braces. And parents don't force that on them.
No.
Interesting way of looking at it. I can see what you're pointing out though. Rowboat?
I'm going to that.
Okay.
I think it's a bad idea because like the surgery's probably not going to work every time, but the parents are already going to have a standard of what the kid should be, and if they're not, then they're not really going to want their kid.
But that exists already. And what I mean by that is I have parents who are already upset because like say they play basketball and their kid doesn't want to play basketball. So once again it goes back to the, if you can get hit walking down the street, should you never walk down the street? Just because there's a chance one parent may do this and then not like their kid, do you stop everybody from being able to do this for fear of that one angry parent? And I present this because these are those big kid thinking things you sort of have to put your head around. Z's?
I'm gonna go back to the fourth one. I know it's kind of far away.
That's fine.
But I don't think we should do that because if we do that, then there are some people that maybe can't afford it, and then they'll feel left out, and then they like won't progress at all. They'll just think it's like
not a bad point either. And
bye, Mom. Bye. Bye.
Make sure you read stories for next week. Say bye to Brady's mom.
Bye.
And take off.